The emperor arranged a marriage, sending my elder sister far away to Liangju. Wei Qinyang was in love with my elder sister and couldn't bear to part with her. He secretly switched the brides, replacing her with me. I sobbed, "Brother Qinyang, please don't." But he just said lightly, "The Liangju region is bitterly cold. Your elder sister grew up in the capital since childhood. Sending her there would be the death of her, as her full-blooded younger sister. It is only right that you share her burdens. Besides, I understand men, they dislike dull personalities the most and favor gentle, understanding women. No man would ever take a liking to you. Just wait a while, and I'll arrange for you to return to the capital." He keeps his word. He really let me return to the capital. But because he acted first and reported later, the Wei family punished him by making him kneel in the ancestral hall and forced him to take me as his concubine. Everyone thought he would refuse, but they didn't expect me to speak up first. Clutching my stomach, I refused to marry him, and I will never be a concubine. He laughed in anger, still maintaining his condescending demeanor. "Given your current situation, I'm already reluctantly agreeing to marry you. What more are you being so fussy about?" Mid-sentence, his gaze fell on my slightly swollen belly, and his expression suddenly darkened. His eyes were bloodshot as he demanded, "Did that brute touch you?" At that moment, when Wei Qinyang asked that question, his tone was particularly fierce and icy. I instinctively trembled, but I still met his gaze directly. "Chang'an is my husband. Why shouldn't he be allowed to touch me? Besides, wasn't it you, Wei Qinyang, who secretly switched me and sent me to Liangju back then? How dare you have the nerve to question me now?" At that time, the emperor decreed the marriage, and as soon as my sister received the imperial edict, she fainted. When she woke up and saw Wei Qinyang, who had come to pay his respects, she cried bitterly, her tears falling like pear blossoms in the rain. "Qinyang, please help me. I don't want to marry into Liangju." Wei Qinyang, who had long admired his sister, felt his heart ache for her. Without regard for the boundaries between men and women, he directly pulled her into his embrace. "Mingyu, don't be afraid. Even if I have to give everything I have, I won't let you marry into Liangju." So he turned his gaze to me. He must have despised me. Although my sister and I are twins, one is quiet and dull, while the other is bright and lively. When we were young, the Wei family held a banquet, and the three of us, out of boredom, started playing hide and seek. Wei Qinyang didn't want me disturbing his time alone with elder sister, so he left me in the desolate garden. I was scared and wanted him to take me with him, but he grew impatient. "Just wait for me here, it's not far. Besides, this is my home. What danger could there possibly be?" "Mingxue, why are you so annoying?" He was lying. The desolate garden was pitch black, overgrown with weeds, and venomous snakes often lurked there. At night, you could even hear bird calls that sounded like a baby crying, which was especially eerie. Why at night? Because Wei Qinyang was so engrossed in his fun that he forgot about me. If someone hadn't found me poisoned by a snake bite, I would have had to report to the King of Hell ahead of schedule. He was so angry that he was frantic. Others said he had been searching for me for a long time. "How could you be so foolish? Why did you just stay there the whole time?" But he forgot that when I was young, just because I broke one of my sister's lanterns, she locked me in a cabinet for the whole night. Since then, I have been afraid of the dark, but I didn't want him to worry, so I still looked at him with a smile on my face. "Brother Qinyang, don't cry, Aishwar is fine." I even shook my bitten leg to comfort him. Actually, it hurts like hell, yet he was a beam of light that shone into my barren life. I will never forget our first meeting. He walked over to me, curled up in the corner, and handed me a rabbit-shaped lantern. "Happy birthday to you." So even if he despises me now, I only remember how he used to be, that warm and kind Wei Qinyang. He froze for a moment, and when he saw me grimacing in pain the next second, he let out an amused laugh. "Mingxue, you are utterly foolish. I stared blankly, almost forgetting the pain, and foolishly asked, "Then, does Brother Qinyang feel happy? Does he like Akshu?" I suddenly limped closer, and for some reason, Wei Qinyan's face flushed slightly. The next moment, however, he spoke with disgust. "Who would like you? With your dull personality, who could possibly like you? If I were to like someone, it should be someone as bright and lively as your elder sister." This time he wasn't lying, so sister can't go to Liangju, but I can, because sister would act coquettishly toward him, would burrow into his embrace, so pitiful and delicate, any man who saw her would feel his heart ache. Elder sister hugged Wei Qinyang back. I saw Wei Qinyang stiffen for a moment. The gesture spoke volumes. A moment later, he abruptly tightened his arms around elder sister, possessive and domineering. "But if my sister doesn't go, who can take her place? The Marquis household only has 2 legitimate daughters." Wei Qinyang thought of me. He suddenly looked up, and his gaze landed exactly where I was standing. I instinctively trembled. Could it be that he discovered I was eavesdropping? Would Brother Qinyang be angry with me? I felt a bit uneasy for a moment. I ran back to my own courtyard. I rummaged through boxes and cabinets, trying to find something to give him. Just then, he appeared. "What are you hiding here for? The banquet will start soon." I was overjoyed, but then wondered why he was willing to give me a friendly look. He couldn't stand my gaze and turned his head away. He placed an exquisite box of pastries on the stone table. I looked at that pastry and was truly overjoyed. It was only later that I found out why he insisted I could only eat it on my sister's wedding day. It turned out he had slipped a sedative into it. While everyone in the mansion was busy, he secretly replaced the bride with me. As the effects of the drug wore off, I saw him trying to leave and reached out to grab him, but my hands were tied. I sobbed, "Qinyang, please don't." But he only said lightly, "Liangju is bitterly cold, and your elder sister grew up in the capital since childhood. Sending her there would be the death of her. Besides, I understand men. They dislike dull personalities the most. No man would ever take a liking to you. Just wait a while, and I'll let you return to the capital." He believed this was a win-win strategy. Not only can I keep my sister from marrying far away in Liangju, but I can also protect my innocence, let alone the fact that the governor of Liangju is dead drunk. Even if he were sober, he would never take a liking to me. After all, no one would like a woman as quiet and still as stagnant water. But the fact remains that we are a man and a woman alone in the same room. This marriage was personally bestowed by His Majesty, so no matter how dissatisfied the governor of Liangju might be, he still had to show consideration for His Majesty. As for his promise that I would be able to return to the capital in a few days, before I could even figure it out, I was pushed onto the carriage heading to Liangju. Through the curtain, I saw my parents pat my sister's hand, their faces seemingly relieved. My heart suddenly felt heavy and dull. Yes, that's right. Since we were young, my parents have always favored my sister, giving her the best of everything first, while I could only have what was left over. Whenever I accidentally broke something of my sister's, their first thought wasn't to understand the facts, but to blame and punish. They said, "Look at you, as still as stagnant water. Why can't you be more obedient? Can't you learn from your older sister and give your parents some peace of mind?" I wanted to say no, but when I saw the disgust in my parents' eyes, I immediately fell silent. No matter how much is said, they will always only believe in elder sister. As for me, I am but a weed, unworthy of anyone's love. Crossing mountains and fording rivers, I awoke from my drowsy slumber. I've been waiting for so long. Will Wei Qinyang come? He used to always get angry with me. Whether it was because I argued with my sister a few times, or because I glanced at another man a few times too many, he would argue with me every time. Now, he watched helplessly as I married someone else. Would he be as angry as before? I waited for a long time, until the carriage reached Liangju, and still, I never saw his figure. Yes, he's not coming back. In his heart, I will never be as important as my sister. I looked up and saw a handsome man sitting on a blood-sweating horse. He was different from Wei Qinyan's kind of handsome. He had a face that was both handsome and rugged, masculine and severe. They said that man was my husband. I had seen my fair share of scenes, yet I was still overwhelmed by his imposing presence. The next moment, in a dizzying whirl, I was lifted onto his war horse. Are you the wife His Majesty bestowed upon me? I nodded. Whoa! He spurred his horse toward the Minister of Personnel's residence, unaccustomed to riding. My legs were chafed raw by the saddle. I couldn't help but say, Lord Liang, could we slow down a bit? It hurts. I didn't expect the man to be so easy to talk to. He slowed down considerably and even apologized to me. If it were Wei Qinyang, he would have surely scolded me for being foolish before giving in. My uneasiness lessened a bit. Since you're so easy to talk to, I definitely won't be scolded even if I do something wrong. I laughed and laughed. So pleased with myself that I forgot my place and spread my arms wide. Unexpectedly, in the next second, I lost my balance completely. The man sighed and swiftly caught me before I fell. He said, Do you know my full name? I knew, but I didn't dare to say it. How could a woman address her husband by his full name? But he said, Liang Changgeng. Me, what? He wrapped his arm around my waist, his features as exquisite as a painting. But I prefer it when you call me husband. I arrived in Liangju. Only then did I understand why Wei Qinyang had said that I would be able to return to the capital after some time, because Liang Changgeng holds military power, and His Majesty is deeply suspicious. Any random excuse can provoke His Majesty's fury, but Liang Changgeng is truly a good minister of works. I have never seen a place where everyone praises one person so highly, yet Liang Changgeng managed to do it. If he were to die due to suspicion, how regrettable that would be. In that moment, I even felt that he and I were kindred spirits, both unwelcome in this world. This was the conclusion I drew from what I heard the local people say while I was playing. On the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival, many people came to the Situ residence. One of them, dressed in a blue robe, looked at Liang Changgeng and laughed mockingly. Liang Changgeng, I never expected you to be so cowardly. You just accept whatever the emperor bestows upon you. Even if it's as dull and stagnant as a pond with no life in it. I never expected that my reputation would reach as far as Liangju, but it doesn't matter anyway. You, a single man, wouldn't know the value of things. A bachelor and stagnant water, a match made in heaven. His gaze fell on me. Don't you agree, Madam Situ? Liang Changgeng's expression remained unchanged, but his grip on my hand tightened slightly. I looked at the other person. My husband has not taken a wife or concubine for such a long time, truly a rare man in this world. Unlike this lord here, who has a house full of wives and concubines, I wonder if his health can keep up. The person holding my hand curled the corner of their mouth into a smile. Meanwhile, the one who had been sneering and laughing moments ago froze, never expecting me to say such a thing. Yet I said it with utmost sincerity, without any hint of sarcasm. His face flushed with anger, and he seemed to grit his teeth so hard they might shatter. Thank you for your concern, Madam Situ. This humble official is doing just fine. Looking at his expression, I began to feel a bit remorseful, worried that my impulsive words might have caused trouble for Liang Changgeng. But Liang Changgeng just smiled and said, Ah Shui, that remark was so sharp it made me bow in admiration. A faint smile tugged at the corner of my lips. He truly was a man of good temper. No matter how often I slipped out to play, he never once got angry. It was the first time I had ever met someone like him, who never once lost his temper with me. Lately, for some reason, his body always felt warm whenever we shared a bed. I thought he had a fever, so I brewed him some medicine, and watched him expectantly. Because I used to brew medicine for Wei Qinyang, he would always frown and say, Mingxue, do you even know how to brew medicine? It's so bitter, how can anyone drink it? If you don't know how, just don't bother. But Liang Changgeng merely paused, smiled, took it, and drank it all in one go. I swear, do you have any preserved fruit? This medicine is a bit bitter. I was taken aback for a moment, then quickly smiled. Changgeng, I'll go get it right away. In the past, whenever I called for Wei Qinyang, he would always respond impatiently and condescendingly. But this time, his reply was gentle. I swear, be careful. Slow down, I'm not in a hurry. Liang Ju is wonderful, and Liang Changgeng is wonderful too, but the maid by my side is not good. She was originally meant to serve my elder sister, yet she followed me here, so she hated me to the core. She wore a smiling face in public, but behind closed doors, her expression turned dark. She glared at me with resentment and said disdainfully, "You may look exactly like the eldest young lady, but in every way, you fall short of her. If it weren't for the fact that you hold the position of the legitimate second young lady of the Marquis's household, you'd be nothing but a worthless good-for-nothing. Otherwise, why would I have married so far away to this desolate land?" I smiled and raised my hand, summoning a gust of wind. She exclaimed in shock, "How dare you hit me?" Liang Changgeng told me that if anyone poses a threat to me or bullies me, I can retaliate, and he will always have my back. I was just teaching a lowly slave who doesn't know how to speak a lesson. My husband said I can do whatever I want. She was both terrified and furious. "Second miss, do you think you're the eldest miss? Do you think you can make men dote on you, with your dull and wooden demeanor? Just wait and see how you'll end up dying. After all, there isn't a single man in this world who likes a woman forced upon him." I don't believe any of what she said. I only trust what I truly feel. But one day, she said, "See that vast, endless grassland ahead? Liang Situ is missing. It's said that at night, there are all kinds of venomous snakes and fierce beasts there. Tell me, without Liang Situ's protection, how long do you think you can survive?" I don't believe what she said. But everyone is telling me that he has indeed disappeared. The soldiers sent out searched for several days in a row but found nothing. I know that those who came to visit all have ill intentions. They all wish for Liang Changgeng to die. I stared at their hypocritical faces. Suddenly, I remembered the night I was left forgotten in the desolate garden. Could it be that Wei Qinyan's parents were just like them? But the desolate garden at night was truly terrifying enough to make one's heart tremble. The snakes in the weeds really do bite. The birds on the branches really do chirp ominously, one after another. If no one went to find Liang Changgeng, how terrified he must be. I rode my horse like a madman, just as he had taught me, galloping into the dark, endless grassland. "Liang Changgeng," I shouted into the northern wind. I had never been so afraid, more afraid than when I faced the darkness alone. Tears unconsciously soaked my clothes. I was desperately trying to find him. This man, whom I had known for less than 3 months, would listen to me attentively and treat me with gentleness. I once thought that what I felt for Wei Qinyang was love. But Liang Changgeng made me so worried. Only at this moment did I realize how much I really liked him. Liang Changgeng, in a dizzying whirl, I was lifted onto the horse and pulled into a warm embrace. A familiar voice grunted, filled with deep amusement and helplessness, "Akshu, are you trying to murder your own husband?" He raised his hand and gently wiped away my tears. "What brings you here?" He had assumed I would remain indifferent and stay at the Situ residence. But just by looking at him, I was already in tears, and I simply held him tightly, choking back sobs. I said, "Changgeng, I'm afraid that you won't want me anymore." Yes, I had already unknowingly fallen for him. The person holding me stiffened for a moment, then lowered his gaze to look at me carefully. The corners of his mouth couldn't hide his smile. "Ashwe, what did you just say? Say it again." I looked up and kissed his lips. I said, "I like Liang Changgeng." He held me tightly, restraining himself with all his might. In the end, he gently placed a kiss on the top of my head, as if I had vanished in an instant. Liang Changeng has returned. He annihilated 30,000 enemy troops and was commended by His Majesty. Those who had wished for his death were utterly displeased. The one in the blue robe earlier, his face ashen, offered his congratulations, and the banquet came to an end. The maid who despised me knelt in the snow. She kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. I only thought that I did not have the intention to harm the second miss. Liang Changeng's face was cold and stern, as if he had returned to the way he was when I first met him. He covered my ears, his voice as cold as ice. He uttered a few words. The maid's face instantly turned paler than snow. He thought I couldn't hear, but I heard it. What he said was, "Take her to prison. Life is worse than death." After this incident, he dispatched more hidden guards to protect me. I still lived as freely as before, but I rarely got to see him. Only late at night, I finally sensed a familiar presence. He held me tightly in his arms, resting his chin on the top of my head. In my dazed state, I imitated what he had done countless times before and gently patted his back. There was a hidden guard who was very afraid that I would misunderstand him. At the risk of being punished by him, he gave me some information. This time, the enemy nation has returned with an unusually fierce force. Sichu has been working tirelessly for several days without rest. My heart suddenly tightened. Chang Geng. Later, the battle began. The shadow guards, following his orders, brought me to a safe place. The shadow guard said that Sichu would return before long, but I didn't have time to wait for him. I was taken away by the people Wei Qinyang brought. I originally wanted to end my own life, but along the way, I discovered I was pregnant. I touched my own stomach, feeling as if I had found a reason to live again. So, I stopped resisting and desperately ate the food. And so, we arrived in the capital. I was taken to a private residence purchased by Wei Qinyang, but they were still discovered by Wei's parents. They were so angry that they made Wei Qinyang kneel in the ancestral hall. That wretched child actually dared to deceive us and pull off such a switch. I swear, I'm sorry. When I found out about this, I almost broke his legs. Every moment, every minute, he must remember to bring you back to the capital at the first opportunity. Otherwise, how could he face your parents? Their words were a mix of truth and falsehood. If they truly cared, why would they have brought me back when Chang Geng was facing the enemy? Wei Qinyang, however, was so angry that he laughed. Am I even your biological son anymore? Surprisingly, he didn't refute it, nor did he get angry. You have to understand, before this, what he hated most was his parents scolding him because of me. In his view, if it weren't for me being a nuisance, he would have long since married my sister. But no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't shake me off. Ah well, at least we've made it back to the capital. I swear, in the end, it's our Wei family that has wronged you. Now, with Liang Sichu's fate unknown and you having no one to rely on, why not let Qinyang take you as his concubine? With your dull personality and being a second marriage, I'm afraid it won't be easy to find a suitable match. Mother Wei took my hand and said. I subtly withdrew my hand. I glanced at Wei Qinyang. He actually, quite uncharacteristically, did not get angry but instead smiled and said, "You should be secretly pleased." He looked down at me from his high position, as if waiting for me to be overjoyed. Even the others widened their eyes in surprise, but no one expected that I would be the first to speak. Clutching my stomach, I don't want to marry him, and I will never be a concubine. Wei Qinyang's slightly raised eyebrows froze. His face visibly showed disbelief. After a long while, he finally laughed and said, "Given your current situation, I'm already reluctantly agreeing to marry you. What are you still being so fussy about?" Halfway through his words, his gaze fell on my slightly swollen belly, and his eyes suddenly darkened. His eyes turned bloodshot as he demanded, "Did that bastard touch you?" After he finished speaking, everyone stared at my belly. I was startled by the stare. Instinctively tightening my arms around my stomach, a mocking expression appeared on my face. What do you mean by asking that? Minister Wei. Chang Geng is my husband, why shouldn't he touch me? And besides, Minister Wei, Madam Wei, my husband is still waiting for me. I lifted my leg and rushed out, but Wei Qinyang ran very fast and soon grabbed my hand tightly. His eyes were both angry and red, and he questioned me again with a fierce and menacing tone. Did he really touch you? Wei Qinyang is so annoying, I already said it, yet he still insists on asking. Even I know that when you can't win someone's affection, the best thing is not to cling. I stared at him coldly and said, word by word. Chang Geng is my husband, the one I love. I am happy when he touches me, rather than being or not being. This phrase of liking and joy directly made Wei Qinyang loosen his grip. Staggering, he tumbled to the ground. Wei's parents exclaimed in shock, Qinyang, how could this be? He pushed past the others and stumbled over to me. How could it be like this? You were so. He clenched his palm tightly, his words trailing off. But I spoke for him. I'm so dull and unresponsive. No man would ever touch me, without exception. They all prefer gentle, understanding flowers. Marrying a piece of deadwood like me, and being forced into it at that, it should have been a lifelong disgrace for him. He must loathe me to the core, tormenting me with all his might. After all, if it weren't for my striking resemblance to my elder sister, the one he intended to marry would have been her, radiant and vivacious. In comparison, I am but a mere weed. How dare I vie for brilliance with the sun and the moon? Anyone would think so, even Wei Qinyang. But he is inherently hypocritical, so how could he ever admit it? Hearing my words, which could practically be considered a direct quote, a flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. Aishwe, let me explain. I'm tired of listening to his rambling. Wei Qinyang, that's exactly what you mean. So why pretend? You all say I can't compare to my sister, and I know it's true. But Chang'eng told me that a shui can also be like the sun and moon, shining brightly. Speaking of this, it feels like I've gone back to the days when I always loved sharing everything with Wei Qinyang. If the birds in the trees were chirping, I had to tell him. If the crabapple flowers at the door bloomed, I had to tell him too. But every time I shared with him, he would complain that I was too noisy. What's so worth mentioning about those trivial things? But there was no other way. At that time, Aishwe's entire life was shrouded in darkness. Having encountered a glimmer of light, she couldn't help but want to grasp it with all her might. This time, I smiled brightly. Wei Qinyang, I love him, and he loves me too. In life, we shall be together. In death, we shall share the same resting place. His entire body trembled violently as he roared sharply. Mingxue, stop it. I told you to stop talking. His stern voice startled everyone, seeing their son in such a deranged state. Mr. and Mrs. Wei understood everything instantly. They immediately pulled him up. Wei Qinyang struggled frantically. Why are you pulling me? She clearly likes me. She clearly said she only wants to grow old with me. He tugged at me forcefully. Mingxue, how could you stop liking me? What gives you the right to stop liking me? I've already let you return to the capital. I looked at him coldly. The Wei family's parents quickly called for servants to pull him away. Lady Wei raised her hand and slapped him. What are you doing now? Back then, we wanted you to marry Aishwe, but you refused to agree, and now you blame her for not remaining chaste for you, for carrying another man's child. But wasn't it you who pulled a switcheroo with Wei Qinyang that led to this mess? Her eyes were filled with disappointment. The child I raised with such care has turned out like this. Wei Qinyang was filled with regret, muttering to himself. If I had known he would lay a hand on her, I would never have. You unfilial son, how dare you talk nonsense? Someone, take him away and give him 20 lashes. Minister Wei looked at me apologetically and said, Ashwe, just pretend you heard nothing today. I will have someone escort you back. But in the end, I didn't leave. because Wei Qinyang threatened to take his own life, he still locked me in the side courtyard, no matter how I tried to imitate my sister's temper. He neither dodged nor flinched. I swear, are you feeling better now? If not, you can smash a few more. I laughed in extreme anger. Wei Qinyang, I'm not going to bother you anymore. You should be happy about that. Besides, didn't you willingly give your all for sister, now that you've finally gotten what you wanted? Why are you coming close to me again? You really are shameless. Yes, he and sister are a perfect match made in heaven. Without me, Minister Wei and Lady Wei would surely agree. But Wei Qinyang didn't say anything in rebuttal, only looked at me with sorrow. These days, he had grown so thin you could almost see his bones, because he refused to eat or drink, all to keep me from leaving. Minister Wei had no solution either after all. He couldn't truly force his own son to his death. Lady Wei came to see me. She said that if Wei Qinyang continued to lose weight like this, he would surely die. I said calmly, then let me go. In the end, she still did not let me leave. Just as I was about to fall asleep, someone sat down in front of my bed. A strong smell of blood filled the air. He raised his hand to touch me, but hesitated and did not lower it. He spoke with difficulty and bitterness. In the past, whenever I got hurt, you would always be so heartbroken. Yes, that's exactly what I did. Then, Wei Qinyang pushed me away harshly, saying I was making a fuss over nothing and being petty. Now that I'm so badly injured, why won't you even come to see me? I know you're still angry about how I switched things around and sent you to Liangju back then. I truly never expected that he would lay a hand on you. After you left, I couldn't eat or drink, wanting to go find you, but my father stopped me. Since then, I've been keeping an eye on matters in Liangju. I knew Liang Chang'an would eventually die in battle, and I was just waiting for that day to bring you back to the capital. Everyone advised me to let it go, that there was no turning back, but I only wanted you to return to the capital, because I made a promise to you, and I meant to keep it. When it was really time for me to return to the capital, I was already pregnant and no longer had any feelings for him. He seemed to be crying. Tears fell drop by drop onto the ground. He choked out, I swear, I regret it, I truly regret it. I finally left the side courtyard, but it wasn't Wei Qinyang who let me go, but the Ming family had discovered me. They brought me back. My father was furious and, without even asking for an explanation, confined me to the courtyard. I gazed up at the full moon in the sky. Suddenly, today is the 15th again, I suddenly feel a bit uneasy, because Liang Chang'an had promised me that he would return today. If he finds out I'm not here, will he be sad and worried? I desperately wanted to go back, but as soon as I climbed out the window, I saw my sister. My sister looked at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Where are you off to, Aishwar? I stood my ground. It's too stuffy inside, just getting some fresh air. Shouldn't she be resting tonight? But it was just as well to see her. I asked, elder sister, could you let me go out to buy some chestnut cakes from the north of the city? But it was as if my sister couldn't understand what I was saying. Her gaze grew colder and colder. Mingxue, are you mocking me? The moment Qinyang saw you return, he abandoned me. You must be very pleased with yourself, aren't you? For so many years, our parents have always favored me and ignored you. Even Wei Qinyang disregarded you. Which of these things haven't you been jealous of? Now that you've finally managed to take something for yourself, are you feeling triumphant? She stepped closer. I had nowhere left to retreat. Elder sister, you've truly misunderstood me. I never intended to compete with you for any of the things you mentioned, because I had long been disappointed by these things. I no longer held any hope for them. It's just that when I look at the high towers of the Ming residence, I can't help but think of Liangju, and think of him. She sneered coldly. Mingxue, stop pretending. You must be laughing at me right now. Wei Qinyang actually became neither human nor ghost because you took my place to marry far away in Liangju. Even if the Wei family tried to stop me, I would still come looking for you. The moment I heard that Liang Situ had gone missing, I immediately had you returned to the capital. I didn't let you be humiliated by enemy soldiers, she scoffed. Mingxue, aren't you just so lucky? But have I ever told you don't ever covet anything that belongs to me? I've known since I was a child that whenever I took something from her, she would lock me in the pitch-black cabinet. Mingxue, even if it's something I no longer want, don't you dare think of taking it, you don't deserve it. Ku Mingyu, I have never taken anything from you since we were children. If it were before, I would have buried everything deep in my heart, but during my time in Liangju, changes had already taken place subtly. I stared straight at her. Mingyu, I have a husband. And his name is Liang Changeng. I love him. As for the Wei Qinyang you mentioned, if you like him, you two can stay locked together for all eternity. She paused in her steps, surprised by my rebuttal, but I continued, I was perfectly fine staying in Liangju, but Wei Qinyang insisted on bringing me back. Now I'm trapped in this villa, unable to return. This is clearly not my fault at all. Why don't you go find Wei Qinyang instead of coming to me? It has always been like this. Whenever Wei Qinyang upset her even slightly, she would come and make trouble for me. She insisted that I was the one stirring up trouble between them, but I did nothing at all, and still ended up suffering for no reason. Now you still want to deceive me. I touched the pouch hanging at my waist. It was specially made for me by Chang Geng. Once opened, it contains a lethal poison powder. He once said to me, Akshu, if one day someone tries to harm you, open this, no matter what. I will always have your back. Logically speaking, I should have used this pouch on the day Wei Qinyang abducted me, but he had far too many men. The poison powder is simply not enough. I'm a bit hesitant, not because I don't want to harm her, but if I were to throw it out and kill the Marquis's daughter, who might even be the future daughter-in-law of Minister Wei, this mess would be a bit too big to handle. He might not be able to handle the consequences. I hoped my elder sister would calm down at this moment, but she seemed to have lost her mind completely. Mingxue, if it weren't for you, how could I have lost Wei Qinyang? I wish you were dead. Just as her hands were about to grab my neck, and I was preparing to strike back, she was kicked hard to the ground. Mingyu, what are you doing? Mingyu was incredulous, heartbroken, and furious. Wei Qinyang, how could you do this to me? You clearly said you would be good to me for a lifetime. Have you forgotten all of that? Once, Mingyu was also weeping like a pear blossom bathed in rain, and Wei Qinyang was utterly flustered. He would always coax her with gentle and tender words, because she had a proud and aloof nature. It was rare for her to show vulnerability. Wei Qinyang would then feel an overwhelming ache in his heart. But now, Wei Qinyang was giving her the cold shoulder. Miss Ming, if you have any grievances, take them out on me. Don't hurt Akshu. Ha ha ha. Mingyu laughed, her laughter filled with resentment. You would actually abandon me for a block of wood. Have you forgotten? You said I was a gentle and understanding flower. You said I was bright and lively, and that you would marry me someday. Wei Qinyang didn't look at her, only wanting to hold my hand. He said coldly, it was just childish talk from when we were young. It shouldn't be taken seriously. Besides, I already spared you from suffering in Liangju back then, which can be considered as having done my utmost. From now on, we owe each other nothing. Mingyu's gaze at him was filled with extreme bitterness and resentment. She's just a block of wood, unloved by her parents, and a burden to you. What is there to like about her? Wei Qinyang ignored her, grabbed me, and led me out through an underground passage. He brought me back to his villa again. I spoke indifferently. Wei Qinyang, you've seen it yourself. If you continue to imprison me, I'll only face more and more danger. Can you let me go? He looked at me, his smile tinged with sorrow. Akshu, I thought after I said those words, you would understand my feelings. I scoffed coldly. What do your feelings have to do with me? He was like a stray dog, stripped of all his strength. I know that no matter what I say now, you won't believe me, But I never expected the Ming family to find out and imprison you. But can you give me a chance to atone for my mistakes? I truly love you. In the past, I was too proud and ashamed to admit it. His words made me sick to my stomach. You say you like me, yet you hurt me over and over again. Your so-called affection is truly disgusting. Wei Qinyan's voice was broken. I swear, please don't say that. I didn't know what was wrong with me at the time. I turned my head away, unwilling to look at him again, but his eyes flashed with a strange excitement. Is it true that if the child is gone, you can be with me? My heart skipped a beat, and alarm bells went off in my mind. His palm, at some point, held a pill as he walked toward me. Akshu, don't be afraid. Once the child is gone, we can be together. I gripped the bag tightly, just as I couldn't hold back any longer. Bang! A long sword severed Wei Qinyan's arm. The door was wide open, and I opened my eyes to look. That tall figure, imposing and stern, had dark, smiling eyes, while behind him, the flustered Wei family servants hurriedly spoke up. Young master, we truly couldn't stop him. Wei Qinyang looked over in astonishment. According to the third prince's scheme, Chang'e should have died beyond the Great Wall. Chang'e stepped forward, treading through blood, his faint smile sending chills down one's spine. My apologies. This minister has come to retrieve his wife. The moment he glanced at me, the ice melted away. Let's go home. I happily threw myself into his arms. Chang'e, it's been half a month since I last saw him, and I really miss him. But I never expected him to keep his word so faithfully. He promised to show me all of the northern frontier. No matter where I was, he would always bring me home, held in my arms. Chang'e's voice was so gentle, as if afraid to startle a child. It's all right now. Minister Wei and his wife, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, both wore expressions of disbelief. How could you possibly still be alive? Minister Wei was left speechless. It must be known that the third prince had laid many ambushes to kill him, so in their eyes, Chang'e was already a dead man. Unlike me, I never worry, because he promised me he would return safely. I believe in him. He keeps his word. Lord Liang, what is this? Minister Wei stared at his son's severed arm with lingering fear. If Chang'e had died in battle, no one would have cared about what happened to me. But just as Chang'e was still defending against foreign enemies, Wei Qinyang had already abducted me. He was even caught trying to force me to drink an abortion potion when people found him. Minister Wei and his wife grew paler and paler the more they thought about it. Yet Chang'e looked at them and said, I suppose Lord Wei should address me as Marquis of Changping. Minister Wei collapsed to the ground in a heap. Not only had he failed to kill the man, but he had even ended up getting him ennobled as a marquis. Without another word, Chang'e carefully shielded me as we made our way out. Wei Qinyang, with his broken arm, was frantically trying to rush forward, but he was firmly held back by Minister Wei and his wife. Stumbling and hoarse, he cried out, swear. My footsteps faltered for a moment, in Chang'e's unreadable gaze. I guiltily shrunk my neck. The pouch at his waist was open, the poisonous powder scattered out. All of it landed on Wei Qinyang. It's not my fault. Who told Wei Qinyang to dare hurt my child? Akshu, this was never your fault to begin with. Chang'e patted my head and said to me, in truth, he had secret guards stationed around me. It was the men sent by Wei Qinyang who killed the person. Only then could they take me away, if His Majesty were to truly investigate this matter. The Wei family would undoubtedly face the death penalty. After all, Chang'e had just won a great victory, and now the news of the Wei family abducting a minister's wife had spread. If this matter is not handled justly, would it not chill the hearts of countless soldiers? His Majesty is not entirely foolish. Even after Wei Qinyang's death, he did not hold Chang'e accountable. Instead, Chang'e presented evidence of the crimes of collusion with the enemy committed by the Wei and Ming families. as well as the third prince, and secured their convictions, he then requested to resign from his position from His Majesty. I asked him, "Chang Gang, do you regret it?" He said, "Now the world is at peace, and my greatest wish is to stay by your side and our child's." I took his hand and walked step by step toward the happiness that belongs to us. By the time we returned to Liangju, the trees we had planted had already bloomed. Pieces fall upon us, hold your hand, and grow old with you. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My mother was a time traveler, brilliant and extraordinary, who insisted on a lifetime of mutual devotion with one partner. My father went to great lengths to win her heart. She carefully considered all my potential suitors and finally settled on the young general. It wasn't until the third year of my marriage that I discovered the young general was keeping a mistress. Tears welled in my mother's eyes as she said, "Your father recently took a beautiful concubine too." She told me that as long as this body of hers dies, she can return to her original world. That day, Mother set a great fire and burned down the estate, and as I watched my husband and his mistress inseparable, I thought, it was time for me to leave too. My mother was a woman who stood apart. Unlike all the other women in the capital, she influenced me profoundly, and with my father, they were a devoted couple, practicing a lifelong commitment to one and only one partner. When I reached the age of marriage, she did not seek for me to marry into a wealthy or noble family, but rather hoped I could choose a gentleman I truly loved and find fulfillment. The marriage proposal my father arranged for me was firmly rejected by my mother because the young man already had a concubine by his side. In our family, Yuanyuan's marriage, her betrothed, must be pure and untainted. There will never be any other woman by my side. Under my mother's careful selection and with my own approval, I married the bright and upright General Cheng. After marriage, we treated each other with the utmost respect and lived in perfect harmony. He was also deeply affectionate towards me, vowing never to take a second wife. But it wasn't until the third year of our marriage that I learned from Cheng Yin's colleague that he had been keeping a mistress outside for 3 years. Outside the villa in the outskirts of the capital, I waited for a long time and indeed saw Cheng Yin, hand in hand with a graceful woman and a 3- or 4-year-old boy. Stepping out of the courtyard, chatting and laughing, I froze in place. The woman, dressed in fine silk and brocade, reluctantly wrapped her arms around his waist and whispered something into his ear. I heard my husband's low, soft sigh. "Your mother has a kind heart. I believe she will accept you one day. Just give me some time. You and our son." Cheng Yin leaned down and kissed the boy's cheek, then turned and left. That scene pierced my heart deeply. My eyes stung with unshed tears as I confronted him upon his return to the estate. "Cheng Yin, when did you have a child?" Only then did I learn that it was an unwritten rule for unmarried men of age to leave behind an heir before heading off to battle. That woman had been taken in by his grandmother as his concubine before his departure for the war front, and both she and the child had been living all along in the suburban villa outside the capital, but before the wedding. He clearly told me that he had never had any concubines or intimate companions. Cheng Yin pleaded with me in a low voice. Now that Qian is growing up, he must be given a proper status. After all, he's just a son born of a concubine. Shushu has already said she's willing to remain nameless and let Qian recognize you as his mother. A Yuan, I'm sure you can understand me. I silently closed my eyes, my heart already half frozen. In the eyes of the world, he has already shown me great respect. For 3 years of marriage, he has taken no concubines, made no demands for me to bear children, and even though he has an outside woman, she has never been brought into our home. Even his only illegitimate son is registered under my name. Everyone urged me to compromise, taking turns to visit and persuade me. Yet, having been influenced by my mother since childhood, I have never belittled myself because I am a woman, since women are expected to preserve their purity. It is only natural that my husband should do the same. In this world, there will always be those who are willing to remain devoted to one person for life. So, I said slowly and deliberately, I do not agree to have this child entered into the Cheng family registry. Cheng Yin's face instantly turned cold and somber. After a long while, he let out a sigh. Ah Yuan, you have lost your original heart. In the past, when the epidemic was rampant, you showed compassion by distributing porridge. You couldn't bear to see mothers and children go hungry. How have you become like this now? I slightly lowered my gaze. Do you think I've changed? You really should take some time to calm down, Cheng Yin said with a disappointed look before turning and leaving. Feeling disheartened, I decided to return to my parents' home that very night. It would have been easier if I had never loved Cheng Yin. But the opposite was true. Cheng Yin and I were a rare case of free love in this era. We grew up together, riding bamboo horses and playing around the bed, having once studied at the same private school. Later, before he was conscripted by the court to go to the battlefield and fight the enemy, he privately pledged his life to me, his gaze burning with determination. Ah Yuan, if I return with honors, will you marry me? I smiled through my tears, vowing that as long as he returned safely, I would marry him no matter what. He cherished my feelings deeply, holding me tightly and saying, in this lifetime, I will never let you down, and I will never take another. With 3 letters and 6 etiquettes, wild geese served as our messengers. My only request was that he could not take a concubine, and he agreed. And I never knew that before he bid me farewell with deep affection and made solemn vows, he had already been intimate day and night with his chambermaid, all for the sake of leaving behind an heir. He claimed he had done nothing wrong. But what wrong had I done? Now, as I speak of this to my mother, my heart is filled with bitterness, that Cheng Yin, pretending to be so respectable, it's also my fault for not uncovering his true nature earlier. He hid it so well. Mother was filled with indignation and let out a soft, sorrowful sigh. Your father has recently taken a concubine as well. Men truly are all big, unreliable pigs. Perhaps after marriage, the love they once had fades away, and they start to prefer fresh, gentle, and understanding companions. As she spoke, the corners of her eyes gradually reddened. I was stunned. For decades, father had kept himself free from any scandal for mother's sake. Could he change too? An old tree sprouts new leaves. Only in middle age do people regret not meeting in their youth. Is it destined for men to be this way? And are mother and I fated to compromise our beliefs? I've always known that mother is a time traveler, that she doesn't belong to this era. She said that in the era she came from, men and women were equal. If a husband was unfaithful in marriage, a woman could also divorce him and leave freely. But father didn't seem to fully believe what she said. He once said that being faithful to mother was something he willingly embraced. Mother suddenly smiled and said, my dear, if one day I leave, you must go and find your own vast sky and boundless sea. I was stunned and was about to say something when the servant at the door hurried in to announce, Madam, Miss, General Cheng is here to see you. He dares to come. I haven't even settled the score with him for bullying my daughter. Mother immediately flared up and wanted to go with me, but I shook my head. This is a matter between us as husband and wife. Our daughter can handle it well, so there's no need for mother to worry and trouble herself. Cheng Yin brought the little boy along, and I finally got a clear look at his appearance. He looks very much like Cheng Yin, and perhaps his eyes and brows also resemble his mother's. Seeing me come out, Cheng Yin nudged the boy's shoulder. Qian, go quickly. That is your mother. Cheng Yin made no mention of the mistress. I stared fixedly at the child, only to see him cry and shrink back before he could even touch me. Father, father, she is not my mother. Mother is still alive. Why are you making me call someone else my mother? He frowned and scolded. Qian, stop making a scene. I gave a faint, bitter smile. Cheng Yin, what you are doing now is a betrayal to me, and to them as well. With a complicated look in his eyes, he said thoughtfully, a Yuan, I must let Qian return to his ancestral roots. From now on, he will be your own son, and our lives will not change in any way. Trust me. I slowly took a few steps back. Unless we divorce, then you can also bring that woman from outside into the household. And this child can naturally be registered in the family tree as a legitimate heir. Before I could close the door to decline visitors, a woman with disheveled hair suddenly rushed out from not far away. It was none other than his mistress, Liu Wenshu. With a sorrowful expression, she repeatedly kowtowed to me. You, as the honored wife, may not tolerate a lowly concubine like me, and that is fine. I only beg you to allow Qian to be recognized by his ancestors. If I could serve the general even once, I would die without regrets. But after all, he is the general's own flesh and blood. Cheng Yin's face stiffened, his hand beneath his sleeve loosening and then clenching again. Shushu, why must you go to such lengths? Liu Wenshu paid no heed, her head already bleeding from the kowtow. As she tugged at the hem of my clothes, her voice trembling, Madam, I beg you. I remained unmoved and coldly retreated a few steps. Miss Liu, save your act of feigned suffering for the men. I'm not one to have a merciful heart. Then, I fixed my gaze firmly on Cheng Yin. Cheng Yin, I'll be waiting for you to send over the divorce papers. The crowd around them grew larger, whispering among themselves. General, Liu Wenshu looked at Cheng Yin with desperate, tear-filled eyes. Her body swaying unsteadily as if she might faint before she could finish speaking. Cheng Yin could no longer hold back. He stepped forward and pulled the weakened Liu Wenshu into his arms. Liu Wenshu lay in his arms, raising her eyes to look at me. Across the blinding sunlight, we locked eyes. In her eyes, there was both hatred and triumph. She hated me for taking her place, for stealing Cheng Yin away. Pleased that she had snatched it back again, I proposed a separation, but Cheng Yin refused. Coldly throwing down his words, 7 days from now, after my wife has finished visiting her family, I, the general, will come to take her home. As long as you live, you are the one and only lady of the Weiyuan general. This will never change. In front of everyone, he swiftly carried Liu Wenshu away. The crowd on the street gossiped about me, saying nothing more than that I was jealous. Amidst the surrounding noise and chaos, my chest suddenly felt as if it had fallen silent. All other thoughts vanished, leaving only one behind: leave Cheng Yin, and never look back. On the same evening, Father returned to the estate with Aunt Zhao. Aunt Zhao was only 3 years older than me, and she was Jin's, the courtesan of the Drunken Moon Pavilion. My father, who had always been frugal, was so infatuated with her that he spent 2 years' worth of his salary to redeem her, convinced that he was accomplishing a rescue from the red light district. When Zhao Jint's returned, she rode in a bridal sedan chair, looking immensely proud and causing a citywide uproar. Without any status or title, she tried to enter the main hall but was stopped by a maid. Waving her round fan, she declared loudly, "Whoever the master favors is the true mistress of this household. You'd better not mistake who your real master is." Father walked guiltily over to Mother. "Huanyun, I thought that in this lifetime, my heart would remain unmoved by love. I only wished to cherish the familial bond between us and spend the rest of my days in peace. But the moment I laid eyes on Jin's, I finally understood what it means to have one's heart stirred." Mother's figure visibly swayed. Father said in a deep voice, "We have been husband and wife for decades, sharing the deepest of affections and sincerity. You must understand me, don't you?" The profound love between father and mother had once spread throughout the capital. Celebrated as a beautiful tale, who in the capital doesn't know that among the noble families, only father and Cheng Yin have remained untouched by scandal, achieving a lifetime of devotion to one person. Yet now, both of them have taken concubines. Father's pleading gaze is exactly the same as Cheng Yin's. I looked at mother with concern, but she only sneered in disdain. Lu Shuyuan. If I were to say that I have now fallen in love with someone else, the love of my life, would you allow me to live with him under the same roof as you? Father was stunned. Nonsense. As a married woman, you should abide by the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. How can men and women be the same? Mother replied calmly. In that case, since you know my temperament, you should understand that I, Shen Huanyun, have always been a person of integrity and could never share a husband with another woman. It seems I've been too lenient with you all these years, making you forget that the husband is the guiding principle for the wife. Father frowned deeply and parted ways with mother on bad terms. Mother, father, I didn't know how to begin. Mother smiled and said, I only recently found out that to return to my original world, all I need is for this body to die. Darling, perhaps neither of us has any reason to stay by their side any longer. Upon learning of mother's decision, I walked outside in a daze. Unexpectedly, I happened to see Cheng Yin had not yet left and was rushing back to the Liu residence gate. It turned out that after Liu Wenshu woke up, she had come to kneel again at the back courtyard's side door. I had already instructed the servant that I would be taking an afternoon nap and would not see anyone. Liu Wenshu was nestled in his arms, weeping as pitifully as pear blossoms bathed in rain. I had hoped to come and beg the lady once more, but she has closed her door and refuses to see me. I wonder if I have somehow offended her. Cheng Yin's heart ached with pity. Shushu, this is not your fault. It's all because I've spoiled her too much, making her so aggressive. You mustn't blame yourself. But I noticed that Liu Wenshu, nestled in his arms, showed no sign of weakness on her face, only a clear, overflowing smile of satisfaction. Mother once said that the highest form of love a man can show a woman is to feel heartache for her. How could a man who has not remained faithful in both body and mind ever be worthy of me? I think it's time for me to leave as well. The 7-day agreement had arrived, and Cheng Yin's carriage was waiting for me in front of the Liu residence. He paced back and forth anxiously, seemingly worried that I was holding a grudge. He requested to see my father, hoping he could persuade me to return in the name of a father's authority. But I refused to see even my father. Never did I expect that on that day I would stride directly out of the mansion and walk to the carriage. Cheng Yin was somewhat taken aback. A yuan? You? He hesitated for a moment, then spoke. If you don't agree to me taking a concubine, I absolutely won't. But Chenan is growing up, and we must consider his dignity. Even now, his heart and mind are still completely occupied by his mistress and eldest son. I smiled and interrupted him. Why not? There's no need to let Qian suffer the pain of being separated from his own flesh and blood. I agree to you taking a concubine. He was overwhelmed with pleasant surprise. A yuan? Can we not separate? All right, I replied meekly. It is truly a blessing that you have concubines and children. I was too willful in the past. Cheng Yin looked at my calm and unruffled expression and finally breathed a sigh of relief. My lady, you are finally willing to accept them. Believe me, nothing will change between us. He personally took my hand and helped me into the carriage, gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. Everything seemed just as it was when we were deeply in love. Yet, on the very next day after I returned, he welcomed a concubine into the household. In front of everyone, I drank the tea offered by Liu Wenshu as a gesture of accepting her as the concubine. She smiled brightly and said, Madam, you are in poor health. From now on, I will take on the responsibility of caring for the general, so you can rest well. I nodded faintly. That is good. As night fell, the candles were extinguished, and my husband and Liu Wenshu were celebrating their wedding night in the bridal chamber. At that time, flames rose into the air above West Street in the capital. On the night my mother set herself on fire, my father was out traveling and enjoying the scenery with Aunt Zhao. I watched from afar as the grey smoke billowed, my vision blurred by tears. Mother has finally found her release and can return to her original world. I should be happy for her. I silently swallowed the pill. It was a fake death pill, exchanged by Mother with her remaining points before she left. It could make one's heartbeat and body temperature vanish completely, just like real death. I, Cheng Yin, my mother, and my father, shall never meet again, whether in life or death. Before entering the bridal chamber, Cheng Yin came to find me and confessed his feelings. My feelings for Liu Wenshu were nothing more than a fleeting morning dew. I'll just share a drink with her and return to be with you. I promised not to stay the night, yet in the end, he broke his word. That night, he never came out until the lights in the moon-embracing pavilion went out. After taking the pill, I closed my eyes and had a brief dream. In the dream, it was the day Cheng Yin and I confessed our love for each other. I had sneaked out of the mansion, disguised as a Flowerdan actress, to help out a sister from the opera troupe, dressed in a flowing water blue gown, with heavy makeup. I captivated the young man in the audience with my soft Wu dialect. After the performance, he stopped me backstage with a smile, with a face like jade and a heart like the Buddha. I dare not look upon Guanyin again, a Yuan. I will give you a love unmatched by any other in Xingjing. Will you marry me? That was the most beautiful and heartfelt confession I had ever heard in my life, and the sincerity in his eyes left no room for doubt. It's just a pity that the cause is beautiful but the result is tragic. Just like mother and father, even if they manage to maintain a few more years of affection, the outcome is still foreseeable. They are always drawn to what is fresh and alluring, that laughable youthful passion. That mutual devotion, in the eyes of those who have already gained their advantages, is nothing but a ridiculous farce, something to be casually discarded. I remember the day I said goodbye to my mother. Her eyes shimmered with a unique light, a smile mingled with tears. Nan, do you know that in that era, I too had family, friends, and a career, yet why was I willing to stay here for decades? Lu Shuyuan will never know that what truly holds me in this world has never been high walls. The truth my mother didn't want me to understand, I finally came to feel it deeply in my own heart. We all bet on the wrong person, and wasted our lives on them. But people often make mistakes, and only then can they change. As long as one wishes to reform, it's never too late. My breathing grew slower and slower, the rhythm of my heartbeats gradually fading, until finally, it stopped beating. It's also a way to repay all those extra heartbeats I had whenever I saw Cheng Yin over the years. The next day, the morning light was faint and pale. A young servant rushed into the moon-viewing pavilion in a panic to report, General, something terrible has happened." Cheng Yin, still groggy from a hangover, suddenly realized he had woken from a tender dream. He rubbed his temples and allowed Liu Wenshu to gently stroke his back. He scolded with dissatisfaction. "What's all the fuss about?" The servant looked troubled. "The mistress seems to be ill this morning." A maid noticed something was wrong and hurried to fetch a physician. But it was already too late. Cheng Yin frowned deeply, threw on his clothes, and got up. "What new trick is the lady playing now?" Reporting to the general. The lady has stopped breathing." "General," Liu Wenshu let out a startled cry, because she saw Cheng Yin's figure suddenly sway, nearly collapsing to the ground. He furiously kicked the servant away. "Nonsense! Get out of my sight." When he arrived in my room wearing only his undergarments, his dark hair disheveled and his feet bare, I lay quietly on the carved pearwood bed, only my pale face visible. It wasn't until the physician and the servants knelt down wailing that Cheng Yin hurried forward, sneering as he checked my breath. "Ah Yuan, I've come to be with you now, stop making a fuss." Yet, I had not a trace of breath, no pulse at all, my body cold, and I no longer responded in any way. The smile on his face gradually froze. The physician tremblingly reported to Cheng Yin, "General, you may not know, but the lady has been excessively worried about you and likely had a heart condition for a long time. She didn't want to tell you, This time, for some unknown reason, she was greatly agitated. And last night, she succumbed to a sudden surge of anger. She has already passed away. His originally steady figure swayed slightly, his eyes widening in disbelief. How is this possible? Liu Wenshu also hurried over, her sash not yet properly tied, the ambiguous pink marks from last night still visible on her neck. Seeing my state, she was also shocked. Cheng Yin lowered his gaze and clenched his fists tightly. I don't know how long it had been, but a drop of warmth fell onto my forehead. I suddenly realized that Cheng Yin was actually crying. Would he be this heartbroken over the death of someone he no longer loved? His voice was hoarse as he murmured my name, a Yuan. That's not it, I just wanted you to yield, not to deceive you on purpose. Liu Wenshu, who was standing nearby, hurried over to support him. General, the dead cannot be brought back to life. You must accept this and take care of yourself. Accept what? Our Yuan was so healthy. Just a while ago, she was still throwing a tantrum with me. How could she possibly be dead? The next moment, he trembled as he reached out to me, intending to lift me from the bed. Liu Wenshu quickly stepped in front of him, saying, "The corpse is inauspicious. For the sake of your health, General, it's best not to touch it. Let the lady rest in peace as soon as possible." Cheng Yin suddenly grew furious, shaking off Liu Wenshu's hand angrily, and picked me up directly, only when he realized my body had stiffened, making it difficult for him to hold me in his arms. Did Cheng Yin completely break down? I finally believed the fact that I had been dead for a long time. General, Liu Wenshu had a few teardrops hanging on her face, hesitantly trying to comfort him. Unexpectedly, Cheng Yin suddenly slapped her, sending her flying. If it weren't for you, how could our Yuan be angry with me? This general never wants to see you again. The martial artist's strength was immense, and Liu Wenshu's lip was immediately split, swelling visibly with blood. Suddenly, tears welled up in her eyes as she cried, "General, how could you hit me? All these years, I have given birth to your eldest son without any status or recognition, left alone in the suburban villa, enduring the strange looks from others. Do you have any idea how I have suffered? Everyone says I have no shame, engaging in illicit affairs without a matchmaker. I can only tend to my own affairs. Because I believe you will surely bring me back." I remained silent for a long time, realizing that her life had not been easy either. When Liu Wenshu was 6 years old, she was trafficked by human traders and eventually ended up serving the elderly lady of the Cheng family. Thanks to her intelligence and wit, she gained the lady's favor and was sent to Cheng Yin's side as a chambermaid. She had thought she could escape her slave status from then on and rise to great heights. But Cheng Yin said to her, "My wife and I share a deep bond. There is no room for a third person. I will assign a few servants to attend to you. You will not be mistreated, but you must never mention to anyone that you are my mistress." His so-called not mistreating was merely providing food and shelter. Yet, as long as Cheng Qian was not recognized by his father, she would forever be condemned by others. In public life, Cheng Yin was a peerless warrior on the battlefield, unmatched in valor. Emotionally, he truly could not bear the burden of anyone. Cheng Yin ignored her hysteria and, trembling, found a suicide note by my pillow. To my husband, he dismissed everyone and sat alone in the room, silently opening it. In the suicide note, it was written, "Pure as the mountain snow, bright as the moon among the clouds, hearing you have 2 hearts, I have come to bid you farewell. Cheng Yin, I have no regrets about knowing you. But you don't quite understand my nature. I would rather be a shattered piece of jade than an unbroken tile. Since you have forsaken our past vows and refused to grant me a divorce, I cannot spend the rest of my life trapped in misery. I can only pray for freedom in this way. I have always been afraid of the heat. So do not cremate me. I wish to be buried according to the hanging coffin burial custom of my hometown, in a geomantically auspicious location on the outskirts of the capital." On the mountain where we once stayed to escape the summer heat, this is my only wish. You have a new wife and children. It should be a life that brings you contentment and fulfillment. From now on, I wish you good health, and may we never meet again. Year after year, Cheng Yin finished reading my suicide note. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, with only the sound of his ragged breathing remaining. After a long while, he shed tears of self-mockery. After all, you would rather seek freedom through death than stay by my side. It was I who caused your death. His eyes bloodshot, he staggered a few steps and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood from his heart. He was a young general in the prime of his youth, radiant like the sun, and had never been so discomposed before. That was a word that had never been associated with Cheng Yin before. Disheartened, utterly desolate, amid the chaos, Cheng Yin was eventually pulled away in a flurry of panic. My coffin was sealed and carried to the cliffside for burial. I don't know how much time passed before I gradually regained my breath. Since it was a hanging coffin, I used the hidden mechanism in my hairpin to pry it open and stepped out, only to find myself facing a bottomless abyss. Fortunately, I had been trained in self-defense by my mother since childhood, so I was agile enough to escape along the cliff without any trouble. I disguised myself and secretly I rented a tea house in a town south of the Yangtze River, and from time to time, I could still hear news from the capital in the streets and alleys. I heard that the bone-deep abscess on father's leg flared up. Without mother's careful attention, cooking medicinal meals, applying poultices, and massaging, he struggled through the winter but still passed away. That night, I dreamed of mother in my sleep. She didn't see me, but I saw her in a completely unfamiliar era, surrounded by towering buildings. Dressed in a simple yet sharp outfit, mother gracefully stepped onto the awards stage, radiant and dazzling. My heart, which had been constantly worried for my mother day and night, finally settled. After Lu Yuan's death, Cheng Yin developed a heart palpitation condition. Not only could he not sleep at night, but he also suffered incessantly. He could no longer lift a sword to practice martial arts, and due to negligence of duty, he was stripped of his noble title. Liu Wanshu often used their young son to test the waters about being promoted to the main wife, pushing him to the brink of collapse step by step. Cheng Yin could no longer hold back and roared, "Stop dreaming. Even if my wife is no longer here, you will never become the second wife." He finally realized that the position his wife held in his heart was irreplaceable. Day after day, he shut himself in his room, drowning his sorrows in drink, until an uncommonly heavy rainstorm struck the outskirts of the capital. The downpour washed away Lu Yuan's grave, and the hanging coffin fell from the cliff, shattering the lid upon impact. To everyone's shock, the coffin was found empty, with only clusters of mushrooms discovered inside. When Cheng Yin learned of this news, he was nearly beside himself with joy. No trace of her remains, rather than being carried off by wild beasts. He stubbornly believed that his wife was not dead. He gathered his spirits and sought out the best coroner in the capital, only to discover that the coffin had been pried open from the inside. Such tricks could not escape the coroner's discerning eyes. From that day on, Cheng Yin resigned from his official post and traveled over mountains and rivers, determined to find any trace of her. Hard work pays off, and 3 years later, he indeed found her dwelling place in a town south of the Yangtze River. She seemed to have gained even more grace and composure than when she was in the mansion, and she was holding the hand of a little girl a few years old. Cheng Yin's heart pounded wildly. He didn't know how to face his wife or how to beg for her forgiveness. To avoid frightening them, Cheng Yin shaved off his beard, applied makeup, and disguised himself as an actor, performing in the entertainment quarters. He taught me to let go of lingering regrets, avoid coquettish anger, cease clinging to the past, turn back from the sea of suffering, and awaken early to the noble cause. Due to insufficient practice, his singing voice was hoarse, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Cheng Yin came from an extremely noble background and had always prided himself on his refined and lofty character. Now, in front of so many lowly slaves and commoners he once looked down upon, he presents himself as an object of amusement, all just to win a smile from her. He recalls how,
Back on the stage, he would gaze at her through layers of makeup, as if catching a glimpse of a crane in the snow, all the joy in his heart condensed into a single line. From now on, I dare not look upon the goddess of mercy. Now, he only wishes to trade places with her. After the performance ended, Cheng Yin, with his ears flushed red and panting heavily, came off the stage to find her. "Ah Yuan, you've deceived me so bitterly." The moon was bright, the stars sparse, and the pear blossoms swayed gently. I never imagined that one day I would reunite with him at a night market, after years of day and night together. I recognized Cheng Yin beneath the heavy makeup at a single glance. I froze for a moment, but I wasn't flustered, only calm. "Long time no see." Cheng Yin looked much older, with white hair already appearing at his temples despite being only in his 20s. The moment he saw me, fire ignited in his eyes as he urgently grasped my hand. "I've given everything from the general's estate to Liu Wanshu and her son. I owe them nothing now. I want nothing else, only to come to you." His words fell, drawing countless strange and sidelong glances. I raised a mocking eyebrow. "You are a distinguished general, yet you dress like this and even speak of it openly. Have you no shame?" "A Yuan, I think I might have gone mad. I cannot bear to lose you, and I cannot endure the thought of someone else taking your place by my side. Please forgive me, will you?" The man, tall and burly in his stage costume, looked utterly out of place as he pleaded with me earnestly, trying to win my favor. "Just like the way you vowed to me before setting off back then." I shook my head and gently withdrew my hand. "If you want to hear it, I'll say it for you. I forgive you. I've long since let it go. But as for the rest, the love you want, you will never have it again." His eyes reddened at the corners. "A Yuan, I only came to repay the love I owe you in this lifetime." "Cheng Yin, do you know when I decided never to turn back?" I told him with utmost calm. "It wasn't when I found out that you, to fulfill your grandmother's wish, left behind an heir before going to battle and kept it from me for 3 years. It's not that the child you brought back refuses to acknowledge me as his mother. Rather, it's because I saw you keeping a plain handkerchief in your study, the one she embroidered with a yellow aureole for you when she was 12. Your relationship with her was never just an arrangement by the elders. It was clearly the stirrings of young love. Not once in your heart have you ever been purely and solely devoted to me." Cheng Yin opened his mouth, a flicker of embarrassment flashing in his eyes, the awkwardness of having his thoughts seen through. He averted his gaze and, by chance, caught sight of my daughter beside me, immediately crouching down. "Is this our daughter?" Cheng Yin held her tightly without a second thought. "I am your father, you." The next moment, he frowned in disbelief, unable to utter even half a word. It turned out that his daughter had used a needle to strike his immobilization acupoint. My daughter coldly returned to my side. "Mother, don't be afraid. This man is audacious and dared to disrespect you. I've already struck his immobilization and mute acupoints. Should we report him to the authorities?" "No need." I smiled, turned my head, and called out clearly, "Husband." An elegant man holding a candid hawthorn stick made his way back through the crowd. Seeing Cheng Yin frozen stiff and motionless, he didn't take offense but simply smiled. "Daddy." My husband gently tapped our daughter's nose. "Wanwan, you're being mischievous again." Then, he took my hand and said to Cheng Yin, who was frozen on the ground, "No matter what my wife's past or future holds, I can give her peace and stability in this lifetime. There's no need for you to worry about it. My daughter is naturally clever and has learned the art of pressure points from me. In 2 hours, you'll be able to free yourself." He then took my hand and our daughter's hand, and under Cheng Yin's desolate gaze, our figures vanished into the vast sea of people. My husband is a physician who practices medicine to help the world. He saved me when I first returned to Bianzhou and fainted on the street. I love freedom, so he accompanies me in traveling across mountains and rivers. Wherever my heart finds peace, that is my home. A few years later, news came from the capital that General Cheng had died in battle. He sent someone to deliver a letter to my residence in Bianzhou. "May I turn into spring mud, to once more add the crimson of crabapple blossoms by your side, my lady." One spring day many years later, I returned to the capital for a reason. Passing by the long-abandoned Zhenyuan general's mansion, I peered through the gate. Inside was a garden full of blooming crabapple blossoms, vast stretches of them, like mist and smoke. With the corridor below covered in crimson pools of candle wax, it was the year of my death. He planted it with his own hands. I only fear the night deepens and the flowers fall asleep, so I light tall candles to shine upon their crimson attire. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.